The smell of barbecue filled our backyard as I watched my brother-in-law Trey charm everyone with his $1 million smile. That smile used to make me feel safe, like everything would always work out. Now it just makes my stomach turn. I'm Summer, and this is the story of how family betrayal taught me the true meaning of karma. Summer, these burgers are amazing, Trey called out, raising his beer. Luke really scored marrying a woman who can cook like this. He winked at my husband, who beamed with pride. I forced a smile, trying to ignore the knot in my stomach. Something felt off about Trey today. The way his eyes kept darting around, how his laugh seemed a little too loud. Mom, can I have another hot dog? My daughter Caitlin tugged at my shirt, her ponytail bouncing with excitement. Sure, sweetie. I ruffled her hair, watching her skip away. The sight of her made my heart ache. Just yesterday, I'd been reviewing her college fund statement, dreaming about her future. Summer, can I talk to you for a minute? Trey's voice was lower now, serious. He gestured toward the kitchen. In private, inside, Trey leaned against our granite countertop, suddenly looking less like the successful businessman everyone thought he was. I need your help, Summer. Just temporary. 3 months max. What kind of help? I asked, though I already knew where this was heading. I've got this amazing investment opportunity, but I'm a little short on capital. He ran his hands through his perfectly styled hair. I was wondering if I could borrow from the kids' college fund. I'll double it when I pay it back. My throat tightened. Trey, that's their future we're talking about. Come on, Summer. When have I ever let the family down? He spread his arms wide. You know me. I'm good for it. Before I could respond, my mother-in-law Zariah bustled in. There you two are. What are you plotting in here? Just discussing a business opportunity, Trey said smoothly. Summer's being cautious about investing. Zariah touched my arm. Oh, honey, you can trust Trey. He's got the golden touch with money. Remember how he helped Luke start his business? I felt the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. Through the window, I could see Luke playing with Caitlin, both laughing as they tossed a frisbee. How much? I heard myself ask. Trey's eyes lit up. Just 50,000. I'll have it back before you know it. My hands trembled as I signed the transfer papers later that afternoon. Trey had all the documents ready, which should have been my first red flag. As the sun set and our guests started leaving, I headed to the kitchen to clean up. That's when I heard it, Trey's voice from around the corner of the house, talking on his phone. Yeah, man, it was easier than I thought. These people trust me with everything. His laugh was different now, cold, dismissive. Family's such a sucker bet. I froze, the plate in my hand nearly slipping to the ground. Through the kitchen window, I could see his reflection in the gathering darkness, pacing and grinning. Don't worry about it. They won't even notice the money's gone until it's too late. And by then, he chuckled again. Well, what are they gonna do? I'm family. The plate finally slipped from my numb fingers, shattering on the floor. The sound must have startled him because he quickly ended his call. Everything okay in there? He called out, his voice back to its usual warm tone. Just dropped a plate, I answered, my own voice surprisingly steady despite the rage building inside me. As I swept up the broken pieces, I could hear him saying goodbye to Luke and Zariah outside. Each shard of ceramic I picked up felt like a piece of my trust falling apart. Need help cleaning up? Luke appeared in the doorway, still smiling from the day's events. I looked at my husband, so trusting, so proud of his big brother, and made a decision. No, I said quietly. I've got this. What I didn't tell him was that I wasn't just talking about the broken plate. I was going to fix this mess, but not in the way anyone expected. Trey had just made the biggest mistake of his life, and he didn't even know it yet. As I heard his car pull away from our house, I gripped the counter edge until my knuckles turned white. He thought family was a sucker bet? Well, he was about to learn that betting against a mother protecting her children's future was the biggest gamble of all. The bank statement stared back at me from my laptop screen, the numbers blurring as I scrolled through transaction after transaction. 3 weeks had passed since the barbecue, and something wasn't adding up. Hey, what are you doing up so late? Luke's voice startled me. I quickly minimized the window. Just checking some numbers, I said, forcing a casual tone. How was dinner with Trey? Luke dropped onto the couch beside me, loosening his tie. Great, he's really excited about this new venture. Says it's going to change everything. I bit my tongue. The transfers I'd been tracking told a different story, one that led straight to several online gambling sites. Did he mention when he might pay back the loan? I tried to keep my voice steady. Come on, Summer, don't be that person. Luke's smile faded. Trey's never let us down before. I opened my mouth to argue, but stopped when my phone buzzed. A text from Sarah, my best friend, and the only person I'd confided in. Found something. Coffee tomorrow? The next morning, I met Sarah at our usual cafe. Her legal pad was already covered in notes. Summer, this isn't good, she said, sliding a document across the table. I did some digging. Trey's business is hemorrhaging money. These are public records showing multiple liens against his properties. My coffee turned bitter in my mouth. How bad? Bad enough that he's been borrowing from everyone he knows. You're not the first, just the latest. I pulled out my own research. Look at these transactions. The money went straight from our account to, well, isn't this cozy? Trey's voice cut through our conversation like ice. He stood there, perfectly dressed as always, but his eyes were hard. Sarah straightened, lawyer mode engaged. Trey, what a surprise. Not really. Small town. Everyone knows everyone's business. He pulled up a chair uninvited, including nosy sisters-in-law who can't mind their own. The money you took from my children's future is my business, I shot back. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Borrowed, Summer. The word is borrowed, and I don't appreciate you snooping around my affairs. When are you paying it back? Soon. He leaned forward, but keep pushing, and soon might turn into never. Remember who Luke trusts more. After he left, Sarah grabbed my hand. That was a threat, Summer. We need to document everything. Back home, I found Luke in his office. We need to talk about Trey. If this is about the money again, it's about more than that. I pulled out the documents Sarah had given me. Look at these. Really look at them. Luke scanned the papers, his face growing darker. These could be manipulated. Trey would never. Call the bank yourself, I challenged. Check where the money went. I'm not making this up, Luke. He stared at me for a long moment before picking up his phone. I watched as he dialed, as he asked questions, as the color drained from his face. There has to be an explanation, he whispered after hanging up. There is. I opened my laptop, showing him the gambling site transactions. He has a problem, Luke, and he's using our daughter's future to fund it. Luke slumped in his chair. I'll talk to him. He'll fix this. No. I closed the laptop firmly. Talking isn't enough anymore. We need to act. He's my brother, Summer. And Caitlin is your daughter. My voice cracked. Whose future are you going to protect? Before he could answer, my phone pinged with an email notification. My heart stopped when I saw it was from one of the investment firms I'd been investigating. The attachment showed more transactions, dozens of them, all leading to offshore gambling accounts. Luke, I said quietly, there's more. As I showed him the email, watching his face crumble with each new revelation, I felt no triumph, only sadness and determination. Trey had gambled with the wrong family's future, and now it was time to show him exactly what a mother was capable of when protecting her children. What are you going to do? Luke asked, his voice hollow. I thought of Trey's threat at the cafe, of his smug certainty that family loyalty would protect him. Whatever it takes, I answered, and I need to know if you're with me or against me. Luke stared at the documents scattered across his desk. Proof of his brother's betrayal laid bare in black and white. Finally, he looked up at me, and I saw something shift in his eyes. What's our next move? Sarah's office felt like a war room, with documents spread across her mahogany desk. My stomach churned as I read through another statement showing Trey's deceptions. We need more, Sarah said, tapping her pen against a legal pad. These gambling records are damning, but we need to prove he never intended to repay the loan. What about his business partner? Luke suggested quietly. He'd been mostly silent during our meeting, still processing the betrayal. I sat up straighter. Talon, he's been with Trey since the beginning. And he might talk, Sarah added. I heard rumors their partnership's been strained lately. My phone buzzed. Another text from Zariah asking why we'd missed Sunday dinner. I ignored it. I'll contact Talon, I decided. But we need to be careful. If Trey finds out, he won't, Luke interrupted. I'll keep him distracted. He's been pushing for another family dinner anyway. The next day, I sat in a quiet coffee shop across town, away from our usual spots. Talon arrived exactly on time, looking nothing like the confident businessman I remembered from company parties. His suit was wrinkled, and dark circles shadowed his eyes. Thanks for meeting me, I said, sliding a coffee toward him. I know why you're here. Talon's voice was tired. The money Trey borrowed. Not just mine. How many others? He pulled out his phone, scrolling through files. At least 7 other families, plus what he's taken from the business. He looked up, his expression grim. I've been gathering evidence for months. Why haven't you gone to the authorities? Same reason you haven't. Family complications. My wife's sister invested heavily in our company. If this goes public, he trailed off. I leaned forward. It's going public either way. The question is whether you want to be seen as part of the problem or part of the solution. Talon was quiet for a long moment, stirring his untouched coffee. Finally, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a USB drive. Everything's here. Bank statements, emails, recorded conversations. He's been using the company to launder money for his gambling debts. He slid the drive across the table. But if anyone asks, you didn't get this from me. Back at Sarah's office, we spent hours going through the files. Each new document revealed another layer of Trey's deception. Look at this. Sarah pointed to an email chain. He was planning to use your money for gambling before he even asked for the loan. This proves premeditation. My phone rang. Trey's number. I showed it to Sarah. Answer it, she mouthed. Put it on speaker. Hello? Summer, dear sister-in-law. His voice oozed charm. Why are you talking to Talon? My heart raced, but I kept my voice steady. What makes you think I am? Small town, remember? People talk, and you're talking to the wrong people. Maybe you should be more worried about what those people are saying. A pause. Is that a threat? No, Trey, that's a warning. The truth has a way of coming out. Careful, Summer. His voice hardened. You're playing a dangerous game. Think about Luke. Think about the family. I am thinking about family, my children's future that you stole. I didn't steal anything. You gave me that money. Under false pretenses. How many others did you scam, Trey? Another pause, longer this time. Meet me tomorrow, just you and me. We can work something out. I caught Sarah's warning look. Not alone. Bring your records, all of them. Meet us at Sarah's office. Bringing lawyers into family business? That's cold. Stealing from your niece's future? That's colder. After I hung up, Sarah gripped my shoulder. You know he won't show. No, I agreed, but now he knows we're serious. I picked up the USB drive, and thanks to Talon, we don't need him to show. Luke called as I was leaving Sarah's office. Trey just called me, ranting about you threatening him. Are you with me on this? I asked, holding my breath. A long pause. All the way, he finally said. But Mom's involved now. She's calling everyone, saying you're trying to destroy the family. I thought of Caitlin, of her dreams we'd planned for, of the trust Trey had shattered. The family was destroyed the moment Trey decided to steal from his own niece. I said, we're just exposing the cracks. As I drove home, I saw Trey's car parked outside our house. He stood in our driveway, that familiar smile plastered on his face, waiting like a spider in its web. Game on, brother-in-law. Game on. The family dinner table felt like a battlefield. Zariah had insisted on hosting, claiming we needed to work things out as a family. I watched Trey charm everyone with stories about his latest business ventures, knowing each word was a lie. Pass the potatoes, Summer? His smile was razor sharp. I handed him the bowl, our fingers briefly touching. How's that investment going, Trey? The one you needed our money for? The table went quiet. Caitlin looked up from her plate, sensing the tension. Thriving, he replied smoothly. These things take time, of course. Really? I cut into my chicken with precise movements. Because I heard your company's facing some difficulties. Summer. Zariah's fork clattered against her plate. This is not the time or place. When is the time, Mom? Luke's quiet voice surprised everyone. When the money's all gone? Trey's facade cracked slightly. Little brother, don't tell me you're buying into these ridiculous accusations. I've seen the proof, Luke said. The gambling sites, the loans, all of it. Caitlin's eyes widened. Uncle Trey gambles? Sweetie, why don't you go watch TV in the living room? I suggested. She hesitated but left when Luke nodded. Well, this is cozy. Trey leaned back, all pretense gone. My own brother and his wife, conspiring against me. It's not conspiring when we have proof, I said. Talon showed us everything. Talon? Trey's laugh was harsh. That backstabbing? That's enough. Zariah stood up. Summer, I expected better from you. Bringing up business matters at dinner, involving Caitlin. Mom, Luke interrupted. Trey took money from your granddaughter's college fund. He's gambling it away. He would never. But I saw doubt flicker in her eyes. Show them, I told Luke. He pulled out his phone, pulling up the documentation we'd prepared. Bank statements, Mom. Gambling transactions. Evidence from his own business partner. Trey's chair scraped back. This is ridiculous. I don't have to sit here and... Sit down. Zariah's voice was steel. She was looking at the phone screen, color draining from her face. Trey, explain this. It's all perfectly legitimate business. $10,000 to Royal Vegas Casino is legitimate business? Luke's voice cracked. $20,000 to Blue Diamond Gaming? You're reading it wrong. Trey stood again. This is a witch hunt. Summer's always been jealous of my success. Success? I laughed. Is that what you call stealing from family? I didn't steal anything. You gave me that money. Under false pretenses. I stood too, hands flat on the table. You said it was for an investment. You said you'd pay it back in 3 months. It went straight to gambling sites, Trey. We have the transfers. Mom, he turned to Zariah, voice softening. You know me. Would I ever do anything to hurt this family? Zariah looked between us, tears in her eyes. I need a moment. She hurried from the room. Happy now? Trey snarled at me. Destroying the family over money? You destroyed this family the moment you decided to gamble with my daughter's future. I shot back. I'll pay it back. With what? Luke asked. The company's broke. Talon showed us the books. Talon needs to learn to keep his mouth shut. Trey's threat hung in the air. Is that what you'll do to him? I asked. What you did to the others who trusted you. Others? Zariah had returned, her face pale. What others? 7 other families, Luke said quietly. All promised returns on their investments, all lost to gambling. Trey moved toward the door. This is all a misunderstanding. Give me time. Time's up, I said. We're going to the police. He froze. You wouldn't dare. Try me. Mom? He looked at Zariah pleadingly. She sat heavily in her chair. What happened to you, Trey? What happened to my boy? Nothing happened. They're twisting everything. The numbers don't lie, Luke said. Neither does Talon. Trey's hand was on the doorknob. You'll regret this, all of you. After he left, we heard his car screech out of the driveway. Zariah was crying silently. Mom. Luke moved to comfort her, but she held up a hand. How much? She asked. How much did he take? From us, 50,000, I said. From others, we're still finding out. She nodded slowly, then looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. What are you going to do? I thought of Caitlin in the other room, of her future hanging in the balance, of all the other families Trey had betrayed. What I should have done weeks ago, I said. I'm going to make him face consequences. Sarah's office buzzed with activity as we prepared our case. Documents covered every surface, and my phone wouldn't stop ringing with calls from other victims who'd heard about our investigation. That's the 4th family this morning, Sarah said, adding another statement to our growing pile. Trey's been busy. Luke paced by the window. He's not answering my calls. His office says he hasn't been in for days. Because he's at the Grand Casino, I said, holding up my phone. Someone just saw him there. Luke grabbed his keys. I'm going. Not alone. I stood up. I'm coming with you. The drive to the casino was tense. Luke's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. What if he's lost it all? Then he'll face the consequences, I said, but my stomach churned. The Grand Casino loomed ahead, its gaudy lights harsh in the afternoon sun. We found Trey at a blackjack table, surrounded by empty glasses. Well, well, he slurred, not looking up from his cards. The dynamic duo. We need to talk, Luke said. Now? I'm a little busy. Trey placed another bet. Unless you're here to stake me, I'm due for a win. I stepped forward. How much have you lost today? None of your business. Actually, I pulled out my phone, showing him the legal documents. It is. These are statements from 7 other families you've scammed. We're filing charges. His cards dropped. You're bluffing. Try me. I swiped to show more documents. Fraud, theft by deception, embezzlement. Sarah says you're looking at serious time. Finally, he looked at us. His eyes were bloodshot, his expensive suit wrinkled. You'd send your own brother to jail? You sent yourself there, Luke said quietly, the moment you stole from my daughter. A security guard approached. Is everything okay here? Fine. Trey smiled, but it was shaky. My family was just leaving. Actually, I said, we're not. Not without answers. Trey stood abruptly, chips scattering. You want answers? Fine. Let's talk outside. In the parking lot, the facade crumbled completely. You think you're so righteous? He spat. Perfect summer, perfect Luke, perfect little family. This isn't about being perfect, I said. This is about you stealing from your niece. I was going to pay it back. One big win. That's all I needed. And the other families? Luke demanded. Were you going to pay them back too? Trey laughed, a hollow sound. You don't understand. The rush, the thrill when you're winning. I had it under control. Under control. I pulled up the bank statements. You lost $30,000 yesterday alone. Because you're pressuring me. If you'd just given me time, Time for what? Luke stepped closer. To lose more? To destroy more families? A sleek black car pulled into the lot. Talon stepped out, followed by two police officers. What is this? Trey's voice cracked. Justice, I said simply. Talon's pressing charges for embezzlement. We're all testifying. You can't do this to me. He grabbed Luke's arm. Brother, please, Mom will never forgive you. Mom's the one who called the police, Luke said quietly. Trey's face went ash white. What? After you left dinner, she found your old phone, saw all the messages from bookies, the threats. She called them herself. The officers approached. Mr. Freeman, we need you to come with us. This isn't happening, Trey muttered. This can't be happening. It is, I said. And do you want to know the saddest part? If you'd just been honest, asked for help with your gambling addiction, the family would have supported you. Instead, you chose to steal and lie. I'll destroy you, he hissed as the officers led him away. All of you, this isn't over. Actually, Talon stepped forward. It is. The DA has everything. Bank records, witness statements, all of it. It's over, Trey. We watched as they put him in the police car. Luke's shoulders shook slightly. He did this to himself, I said softly, taking his hand. I know. He squeezed my hand, but it still hurts. My phone buzzed. A text from Zariah. Is it done? I typed back. Yes, they have him. Her response came quickly. Come over. Caitlin's here. We need to talk about the future. As we drove away from the casino, I watched Trey's police escort in the rearview mirror. He'd gambled with more than money. He'd bet on family loyalty protecting him from consequences. It was a bet he'd lost spectacularly. What now? Luke asked. Now? I thought of Caitlin, of the other families, of the long road ahead. Now we rebuild. But first, we make sure justice is served. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. News of Trey's arrest had spread like wildfire through our small town, and everyone wanted details of the Golden Boy's fall from grace. Mrs. Freeman, a reporter shoved a microphone in my face. Is it true your brother-in-law stole from multiple families? Luke pulled me closer as we pushed through the crowd. Sarah met us at the top of the steps, legal briefcase in hand. Ready? She asked, straightening my collar. Remember, let me do most of the talking. Inside, we found Zariah already seated in the front row. Her face was drawn, but her spine was steel straight. Did you see the newspaper? She asked, holding up the morning edition. The headline screamed, Local businessman accused of family fraud scheme. Mom, you don't have to be here, Luke said gently. Yes, I do. She gripped her purse tightly. He needs to see that actions have consequences. The bailiff called for order as Trey was led in. His designer suit had been replaced by prison orange, his confident stride now a shuffle. When he saw us, his eyes narrowed. All rise, the bailiff announced. The Honorable Judge Martinez presiding. The preliminary hearing moved quickly. Sarah presented our evidence methodically. Bank statements, witness testimonies, Talon's documentation. With each new piece of evidence, Trey seemed to shrink further into himself. Your Honor, his lawyer argued, my client is willing to make restitution. With what money? Sarah interrupted. Our investigation shows Mr. Freeman has gambling debts exceeding $2 million. A gasp rippled through the courtroom. Zariah's hand found mine, squeezing tight. Furthermore, Sarah continued, we have evidence that Mr. Freeman was attempting to flee the country. Airline tickets to non-extradition countries were found in his possession at the time of arrest. Trey's lawyer shuffled his papers nervously. My client, your client. Sarah's voice cut like glass, systematically defrauded his own family members and multiple others. He preyed on trust and familial bonds for personal gain. The judge peered over his glasses. Mr. Freeman, do you have anything to say for yourself? Trey stood slowly. Your Honor, I had every intention of paying everyone back. I just needed time. Time to lose more money gambling? I couldn't help myself. Sarah shot me a warning look. Order, the judge warned. Then to Trey, continue. These people, Trey gestured to us, they're making me out to be some kind of monster, but they gave me that money willingly. Ask them. Under false pretenses, Sarah countered, with fraudulent documentation promising returns on legitimate investments. The evidence is quite compelling, the judge noted. I'm setting bail at $5 million. Trey's face went pale. I I can't afford that. Then you'll remain in custody until trial. The gavel came down with finality. As they led Trey away, he turned to us. This isn't over. Family doesn't do this to family. You did this to yourself. Zariah's voice rang out clear and strong. Every time you chose gambling over honesty, every time you stole from your own blood. Outside, the reporters were waiting. Sarah handled them professionally, while Luke, Zariah, and I slipped out a side door. Mom? Luke asked as we reached the parking lot. Are you okay? No, she admitted, but I'm proud of us, all of us. She turned to me. Especially you, Summer. You saw the truth when I was too blind to see it. My phone buzzed, a text from Talon. More victims coming forward. DA wants to meet tomorrow. It's not over, I told them, showing the message. No, Luke agreed, but at least the truth is out now. We drove to pick up Caitlin from school. She ran to us, waving a paper. Mom, Dad, I got an A on my science project. I hugged her tight, thinking of the college fund we were fighting to recover. That's my girl. Is Uncle Trey still in trouble? She asked quietly. Yes, sweetie. Luke knelt beside her. He did some bad things, and now he has to face the consequences. Like when I broke Mom's vase and had to use my allowance to buy a new one. A laugh bubbled up despite everything. Something like that, just bigger. Back home, Sarah called with updates. More victims were emerging. The DA was building an even stronger case, and forensic accountants had traced money to offshore accounts. We're going to win this, she assured me. He's not getting away with it. After hanging up, I found Luke in our bedroom, looking at old family photos. One showed him and Trey as kids, both grinning at the camera. We did the right thing, I said softly. I know. He put the photo down, but doing the right thing still hurts like hell. The courtroom fell silent as I took the witness stand. 3 months had passed since Trey's arrest, and the trial was finally reaching its climax. He sat at the defense table, still wearing his prison orange, still wearing that smirk, though it looked more desperate now. Please state your name for the record, the prosecutor began. Summer Freeman. And what is your relationship to the defendant? He's my brother-in-law, my husband Luke's older brother. The prosecutor nodded, approaching with a document. Can you tell us about the events of June 15th? That was the day Trey asked to borrow money from our daughter's college fund. My voice stayed steady as I recounted the barbecue, the private conversation, the overheard phone call. And how much did the defendant take? $50,000. Objection. Trey's lawyer stood. The word take implies theft. My client was given this money. Sustained, the judge agreed. Rephrase. How much did Mr. Freeman receive from your daughter's college fund? I repeated the amount, then detailed the paper trail Sarah had helped us uncover. With each revelation, I watched Trey's smirk fade. Mrs. Freeman, the prosecutor continued, what made you suspicious? The phone call I overheard. He was laughing about how easy it was to get money from family, called us suckers. I looked directly at Trey. Then I found the gambling transactions. Trey's lawyer cross-examined aggressively. Isn't it true you've always been jealous of my client's success? What success? I shot back. The facade he maintained while stealing from his own family? Answer the question, Mrs. Freeman. No, I wasn't jealous. I was suspicious. There's a difference. And isn't it true you orchestrated this whole investigation to destroy my client's reputation? He destroyed his own reputation when he chose to gamble with children's futures. The defense lawyer changed tactics. You gave him this money willingly, correct? Under false pretenses, he claimed it was for a legitimate investment. But you gave it willingly? Because he was family. My voice cracked slightly. Because we trusted him. After I stepped down, Talon took the stand. His testimony was devastating. Detailed records of embezzlement, secret gambling accounts, desperate attempts to cover losses with new victims' money. During a recess, Luke found me in the hallway. You did great up there. Thanks. I leaned against him. How's your mom holding up? She's next to testify. Says she's ready. Zariah's testimony proved to be the final nail in Trey's coffin. She spoke with quiet dignity about finding his old phone, about the threatening messages from bookies, about her own role in calling the police. My son, she said, looking directly at Trey, chose gambling over family, chose lies over trust. As his mother, it breaks my heart. But as a grandmother, I cannot stay silent while he steals from innocent children. Trey finally cracked. He stood up suddenly, shocking everyone. You're all against me. This is a conspiracy. Mr. Freeman, sit down, the judge ordered. You think you're better than me? He shouted. I made this family. Everything Luke has is because of me. Remove the defendant, the judge commanded. As guards approached, Trey's rage turned to desperation. Mom, please, tell them I was going to pay it back. Zariah didn't flinch. Like you paid back the others? Like you paid back Mrs. Watson, who lost her retirement? Or the Thompsons, who lost their house? They dragged him out, his shouts echoing through the courtroom. The judge called for order. During closing arguments, Sarah sat with us in the gallery. The prosecutor's summary was damning. Systematic fraud, betrayal of trust, gambling addiction left untreated, multiple victims across state lines. The jury took only 2 hours to reach a verdict. On the charge of grand theft by deception, how do you find? Guilty? On the charge of fraud, guilty. The guilty verdicts kept coming. With each one, I felt the weight of the past months lifting. When the judge announced the sentence, 15 years with no possibility of parole for 8 years, plus full restitution to all victims, Trey finally stopped smirking. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed again. This time, I faced them directly. Mrs. Freeman, what do you say to families who might be facing similar situations? I thought of all the nights I doubted myself, all the family tension, all the pain of exposing the truth. Trust your instincts, I said firmly, and remember that real family doesn't steal from family. Sometimes the hardest thing and the right thing are the same thing. As we walked away, Caitlin ran up from where she'd been waiting with a family friend. Is it over, Mom? I hugged her tight. Yes, sweetie, the truth won. And my college fund? The judge ordered Uncle Trey to pay it all back, plus extra. She nodded solemnly. Good, because I want to be a lawyer like Aunt Sarah. Despite everything, we all laughed. Sometimes justice comes full circle. The doorbell chimed as I balanced a tray of cookies, fresh from the oven. Opening the door revealed Sarah, clutching a thick manila envelope. They found it, she announced, striding into our kitchen. The offshore account Trey was hiding. The forensic accountants finally cracked it. Luke looked up from helping Caitlin with her homework. How much? Nearly $1 million. Sarah spread documents across our counter. They're starting the recovery process. Your family's money will be the first returned, along with the Thompsons and Watsons. My hands shook slightly as I set down the cookies. All of it? Plus interest. Sarah smiled. The judge was very clear about that part. The front door opened again, Zariah carrying grocery bags. Since the trial, she'd been spending more time with us, making up for lost years of focusing on the wrong son. I brought ingredients for dinner, she announced, then noticed Sarah's presence. Oh, is this good news or bad news? The best news, Luke said, showing her the documents. Zariah sank into a chair. He really had that much hidden away? More than that, Sarah explained. The gambling wasn't his only secret. He was running a whole Ponzi scheme through his business. The doorbell rang again. This time it was Talon, looking more relaxed than I'd seen him in months. Did Sarah tell you about the account? We're just going through the details, I said, offering him a cookie. There's more, he added. The company's being restructured. Luke, we want you to take over Trey's position. Luke's eyes widened. Me? You know the business better than anyone, and the board trusts you. Caitlin tugged at my sleeve. Mom, does this mean my college fund is safe? More than safe, I hugged her. It means all the wrong things are being made right. Speaking of right, Sarah pulled out another document. Mrs. Watson wanted you to have this. It was a thank you card, signed by dozens of Trey's victims. Messages of gratitude filled every space. Thank you for being brave. You gave us our lives back. Your strength helped us all. The support group is really helping people, Sarah explained. Victims of financial fraud often feel so alone, so ashamed. You changed that. We all did, I corrected, looking around at our kitchen full of allies. Zariah wiped her eyes. I keep thinking about Trey, alone in that cell. He made his choices, Luke said gently, but he's getting help now. Real help for the gambling addiction. He wrote to me, she admitted. Says he's finally understanding what he did wrong, that he's sorry. Actions speak louder than words, I said, but without bitterness. The anger had faded, replaced by something like peace. Speaking of actions, Talon pulled out his phone. The story's gone national. People are calling you a hero, Summer. I shook my head. I'm not a hero. I'm just a mom who refused to let someone steal her daughter's future. That's what makes you a hero, Caitlin said seriously, making us all laugh. The evening turned into an impromptu celebration. As we gathered around our dining table, I looked at each face. Luke, stronger for having chosen truth over blind loyalty. Zariah, wiser and more present. Sarah and Talon, who risked their careers to fight for justice. And Caitlin, already showing signs of the fierce advocate she might become. I have an announcement. Caitlin stood up suddenly. I got the highest grade on my essay about moral courage. What was your topic? Talon asked. She beamed. I wrote about Mom, about how sometimes the bravest thing isn't fighting dragons, but standing up to family when they're wrong. Luke squeezed my hand under the table, and, she continued, Ms. Roberts wants me to read it at the school assembly. She says it might help other kids whose families are going through hard times. That's my girl, I whispered, throat tight with emotion. As dinner wound down, Sarah gathered her documents. The restitution payments will start next week. Every victim will get their money back. It's not just about the money anymore, I realized aloud. It's about showing that truth matters, that trust is sacred, that family doesn't mean enabling wrong choices, and that mothers are a force to be reckoned with, Zariah added with a wink. Later, after everyone had left and Caitlin was in bed, Luke and I sat on our porch swing. The night was quiet, peaceful. Thank you, he said suddenly. For what? For being stronger than all of us, for seeing the truth when we couldn't, for protecting our family by being willing to break it apart to save it. I leaned against him, watching the stars. Sometimes the deepest wounds lead to the greatest healing. Sometimes the hardest battles leave you stronger. And sometimes, just sometimes, doing the right thing brings its own kind of peace. We're going to be okay, I said softly, and for the first time in months, I knew it was absolutely true.